Welcome back to the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Brad Young, and today we're embarking on an extraordinary journey through time to explore what it truly meant to be a peak performer in the ancient world. We're not talking about modern athletes or business executives today. Instead, we're diving deep into the lives of history's most elite military units, the warriors who defined excellence in their era. What can ancient soldiers teach us about peak performance? As it turns out, quite a lot. These weren't just fighters, they were the result of sophisticated training systems, carefully designed nutrition programs, and mental conditioning that would impress even today's sports scientists. From the disciplined ranks of Roman legions to the lightning fast Mongol cavalry, each of these military forces achieved something remarkable. They became the absolute best at what they did. Over the next hour, we'll examine five of history's greatest military units. We'll explore their training regimens, discover what they ate to fuel their bodies, understand the physical conditioning that made them formidable, and uncover the mental and cultural factors that transformed ordinary men into legendary warriors. These ancient peak performers have lessons for all of us, whether we're athletes, professionals, or simply people striving to be our best. The Roman legions, masters of discipline. Let's begin with perhaps the most famous military force in history, the Roman legions. For over 500 years, these soldiers conquered and held an empire stretching from the misty shores of Britain to the sun baked deserts of the Middle East. According to the BBC, the Roman legions were highly disciplined and organized, forming the backbone of an army that dominated the ancient world through superior training, weapons, and armor. What made the Roman legions true peak performers wasn't just their equipment or numbers, it was their systematic approach to creating soldiers. Rome understood something fundamental: excellence isn't accidental, it's engineered through consistent training, proper nutrition, and unwavering discipline. Every legionary was a product of one of history's most sophisticated military training programs. The Romans didn't just recruit soldiers, they built them from the ground up. Their approach to military excellence combined physical conditioning, technical skill development, unit cohesion, and mental toughness in ways that modern military forces still study and emulate. Let's break down exactly how they did it. Roman training, building the perfect soldier. Roman military training was legendary for its intensity and comprehensiveness. New recruits, called Tirones, entered a 4-month basic training program that would challenge even modern special forces candidates. The training was designed not just to build physical strength, but to instill discipline, unit cohesion, and the technical skills needed for ancient warfare. Every morning began before dawn with a long march. Romans understood that wars were won by armies that could move faster and farther than their enemies. Recruits would march 20 Roman miles, about 18 modern miles, in 5 hours while carrying full equipment weighing up to 60 pounds. This wasn't just cardiovascular conditioning, it was building the mental toughness to keep moving when exhausted. Weapons training consumed much of each day. Recruits practiced with wooden swords and wicker shields that were deliberately made twice as heavy as real equipment. The logic was brilliant. Train with heavier gear, and the actual equipment feels light in battle. They would strike at wooden posts for hours, learning the precise thrusts and cuts that made Roman swordplay so effective. Every movement was drilled until it became automatic. Muscle memory that would save lives in combat. Swimming was mandatory for all legionaries, an unusual requirement for ancient armies. Romans recognized that rivers and seas were obstacles their armies would face, and they refused to let water slow their advance. Physical conditioning also included running, jumping, and wrestling. The goal was complete physical development, strength, endurance, agility, and coordination, all working together. Roman physical conditioning and workouts. The Roman approach to physical fitness was remarkably sophisticated. They understood that different types of strength were needed for different military tasks, and they trained accordingly. Their workout regimen would impress modern strength coaches with its variety and progression. Strength training involved carrying heavy loads over long distances. Soldiers would march with their full pack, which included weapons, armor, tools for building camp fortifications, cooking equipment, and several days' rations. This functional strength training built the exact type of endurance strength needed for campaign life. They also practiced building fortifications, which involved digging ditches, carrying logs, and constructing wooden palisades. Hard physical labor that doubled as strength conditioning. Combat drills were performed in full armor to build specific strength and endurance. Soldiers would practice formation movements, shield work, and weapon techniques while wearing their equipment. This ensured they could fight effectively even when fatigued. The Romans also incorporated competitive elements into training, with soldiers competing in races, wrestling matches, and mock combat. This competition built unit cohesion while pushing individuals to exceed their limits. Flexibility and agility training came through various exercises and drills. Soldiers practiced mounting and dismounting horses quickly, climbing walls and obstacles, and moving rapidly in formation. The goal was to create warriors who were not just strong, but mobile and adaptable to any battlefield situation. The Roman diet fueling the legion. Roman soldiers were some of the best fed fighting men in the ancient world, and their diet was a crucial component of their peak performance. The Roman military understood that proper nutrition was essential for maintaining the strength and endurance required for campaign life. Unlike many ancient armies that lived off plunder, Roman legionaries received regular rations calculated to provide the energy needed for their demanding lifestyle. The foundation of the Roman military diet was grain, primarily wheat. Each soldier received about 3 pounds of wheat per day, which they would grind into flour and bake into bread or mix into a porridge called pulse. This provided the carbohydrates needed for energy during long marches and battles. The grain ration was supplemented with olive oil, which provided healthy fats and additional calories. Salt was another essential ration item, so important that the word salary derives from the salt allowance given to soldiers. Protein came from various sources. Soldiers received regular rations of bacon or salt pork, which could be preserved for long campaigns. When available, they also ate fresh meat, cheese, and legumes like lentils and beans. These protein sources were crucial for muscle recovery and maintaining strength during the physically demanding life of a legionary. Wine was the standard beverage, usually diluted with water. This provided calories and made questionable water sources safer to drink. Vegetables and fruits supplemented the diet when available. Soldiers would forage for wild vegetables, and when in permanent camps, they maintained gardens growing onions, garlic, leeks, and other vegetables. These provided essential vitamins and minerals that kept the army healthy. The Roman military diet was designed for sustained performance over months-long campaigns, providing approximately 3,000 to 3,500 calories per day, enough to fuel their demanding physical requirements. What made Romans peak performers? The Roman legions achieved peak performance through a combination of factors that went far beyond individual soldier quality. Their success came from systematic excellence in every aspect of military operations. First and foremost was their unmatched discipline and organization. Roman armies operated with a level of coordination that their enemies couldn't match. Every soldier knew his role. Every unit understood its place in the larger formation, and the entire army moved as a single coordinated machine. Their engineering capabilities gave them a massive advantage. Romans didn't just fight battles, they reshaped the battlefield to their advantage. They could build fortified camps in hours, construct bridges across rivers, and create siege equipment that could reduce any fortress. This engineering prowess meant they could campaign in any terrain and sustain operations far from home. Their famous roads allowed rapid movement of troops and supplies, giving them strategic mobility that other ancient armies couldn't match. The Roman military system also excelled at learning and adaptation. When they encountered superior tactics or equipment, they studied them, adapted them, and often improved upon them. After suffering defeats against Spanish swordsmen, they adopted the gladius, the short sword that became their signature weapon. When they faced Carthaginian war elephants, they developed tactics to counter them. This willingness to learn and adapt kept Roman military doctrine evolving and improving over centuries. Perhaps most importantly, the Romans created a professional military culture. Soldiers served for 20 to 25 years, creating a core of experienced veterans who had seen everything. This experience was systematically passed down to new recruits through training and mentorship. The result was an army that got better with time, where some institutional knowledge accumulated and improved with each generation of soldiers. This professional military culture, combined with systematic training, proper nutrition, and superior organization, made the Roman legions the peak performers of their age. The Spartan army, warriors from birth. If the Romans represented systematic military excellence, the Spartans embodied something even more extreme, a society entirely organized around creating the perfect warrior. The Spartan army was a force of professional soldiers who were rigorously trained from childhood, and their discipline and effectiveness made them one of the most formidable military forces in ancient Greece. Their primary tactical formation, the phalanx, became legendary for its nearly unbreakable defensive power. Sparta was unique in the ancient world. While other Greek city states had citizen soldiers who farmed in peacetime and fought when needed, Sparta created full time warriors. Spartan citizens didn't work, they trained for war. This was possible because Sparta's economy was built on the labor of helots, a subjugated population that did all the agricultural and craft work. This freed Spartan citizens to focus entirely on military excellence, creating the ancient world's first true professional army. The Spartan approach to peak performance was total and uncompromising. From birth, Spartans were evaluated for fitness. Weak or sickly infants were left to die on Mount Taygetus, a brutal practice that ensured only the strongest survived. Those who passed this first test entered a lifelong system designed to create warriors of unmatched toughness and skill. The Spartan system, called the agoge, was one of history's most intensive training programs, and it began at age 7. The agoge, Spartan training system. At age 7, Spartan boys were taken from their families and entered the agoge, a state run education and training system that would dominate their lives for the next 13 years. The agoge wasn't just military training, it was a comprehensive system designed to create warriors with the physical toughness, mental discipline, and unit cohesion that made Spartan soldiers legendary. The training was deliberately harsh, based on the principle that hardship creates strength. Young boys lived in barracks with their age group, sleeping on reed mats they had to gather themselves. They were given minimal clothing, a single cloak that served as their only garment year round. In the cold Greek winters, this taught them to endure discomfort without complaint. Food rations were deliberately kept insufficient, forcing boys to steal to supplement their diet. If caught stealing, they were severely punished, not for stealing, but for being caught. This taught resourcefulness, cunning, and the ability to operate under pressure. Physical training was constant and brutal. Boys ran barefoot to toughen their feet, wrestled to build strength and combat skills, and practiced with weapons from an early age. They learned to fight in the phalanx formation where individual glory mattered less than unit cohesion. The phalanx required soldiers to stand shoulder to shoulder, shields overlapping, moving as one. A single soldier breaking formation could doom the entire unit, so training emphasized discipline and coordination above all else. As boys grew older, the training intensified. Teenagers underwent the krypteia, a rite of passage where they were sent into the countryside with only a knife, tasked with surviving while hunting helots. This served multiple purposes. It tested survival skills, built confidence, and kept the helot population fearful and submissive. At age 20, after 13 years of training, Spartan men joined the army as full warriors, but their training never truly ended. They continued to live in barracks, eat communal meals, and train together until age 30, when they were finally allowed to live with their families. Spartan physical conditioning. Spartan physical conditioning was integrated into every aspect of daily life from childhood onward. Unlike the Romans, who had structured workout programs, Spartans built fitness through constant physical challenges and competitions. Their approach created warriors with exceptional endurance, strength, and pain tolerance. The goal wasn't just physical capability, but mental toughness, the ability to keep fighting when exhausted, injured, or facing overwhelming odds. Running was fundamental to Spartan training. Boys and men ran long distances daily, often barefoot over rough terrain. This built cardiovascular endurance and toughened their feet until they could march anywhere without boots. Spartans were famous for their ability to cover ground quickly, arriving at battles fresh while their enemies were exhausted from travel. They also practiced sprint training, developing the explosive speed needed for charges and tactical movements in battle. Wrestling and combat sports were central to Spartan physical development. These activities built functional strength, taught body control, and developed the aggressive mindset needed for close combat. Spartan wrestling was brutal, with few rules and matches continuing until one fighter submitted or was incapacitated. This created warriors comfortable with physical violence and pain. Dancing was also part of training, specifically war dances that built coordination, rhythm, and unit cohesion while simulating combat movements. Weapons training with the spear and sword was constant. Spartans practiced with their actual combat equipment, not training weapons, believing that familiarity with real weapons was essential. They drilled in formation endlessly, learning to move as a unit, maintain shield walls, and execute tactical maneuvers. The physical demands of fighting in the phalanx, holding a heavy shield, thrusting a spear repeatedly, maintaining formation for hours, required specific strength and endurance that could only be built through practice. Spartans also trained in swimming and horseback riding, though infantry combat remained their specialty. The Spartan diet, austere but effective. The Spartan diet was famously austere, reflecting their culture's emphasis on toughness and disdain for luxury. While other Greeks enjoyed varied and flavorful meals, Spartans ate simple, functional food designed to fuel their bodies without indulgence. This dietary discipline was part of their broader philosophy that comfort weakened warriors while hardship strengthened them. The Spartan approach to nutrition prioritized sustenance over pleasure, creating soldiers who could function on minimal rations during campaigns. The centerpiece of the Spartan diet was the infamous black broth, a soup made from pork, blood, salt, and vinegar. Ancient sources describe it as nearly inedible to non Spartans, but it was nutritionally dense, providing protein, iron, and calories in a form that could be prepared quickly and stored for days. Spartans ate this broth at their communal meals called syssitia, where all citizens dined together regardless of wealth. This communal dining reinforced equality and unit cohesion while ensuring all warriors received adequate nutrition. Beyond black broth, the Spartan diet included barley bread, which provided carbohydrates for energy. Barley was hardier than wheat and could grow in Sparta's rocky soil. They also consumed figs, cheese, and wine, though in modest quantities. Meat came primarily from pork and game, supplemented occasionally by fish. Unlike wealthy Greeks who ate elaborate meals with multiple courses, Spartans deliberately kept their diet simple. This served multiple purposes. It prevented the softness that came from luxury, ensured soldiers could function on campaign rations, and reinforced their cultural values of discipline and equality. The Spartan approach to nutrition extended to their drinking habits. While other Greeks often drank wine heavily, Spartans practiced moderation, believing that drunkenness was shameful and weakened a warrior's readiness. They would sometimes force helots to drink excessively and then display them to young Spartans as examples of the degrading effects of intoxication. This dietary discipline, combined with their intense physical training, created warriors with lean, powerful physiques capable of sustained performance in the demanding conditions of ancient warfare. What made Spartans peak performers? The Spartans achieved peak performance through total commitment to military excellence that began at birth and continued throughout life. Their entire society was organized around creating the perfect warrior, and this single minded focus produced results that amazed and terrified the ancient world. At the Battle of Thermopylae, 300 Spartans and their allies held off a Persian army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days, inflicting massive casualties before being overwhelmed. This wasn't luck or desperation, it was the result of a lifetime of preparation. The Spartan advantage came first from their unmatched training and experience. While other Greek soldiers were farmers who trained occasionally, Spartans trained constantly from age 7 onward. By the time they entered battle, they had spent more hours practicing warfare than most soldiers spent in their entire lives. This created a level of skill and coordination that other armies couldn't match. In the phalanx formation, where success depended on unit cohesion, Spartan discipline and training made them nearly unbeatable in pitched battles. Mental toughness was perhaps the Spartans' greatest advantage. Their harsh upbringing created warriors who were comfortable with discomfort, pain, and fear. Spartan culture glorified death in battle and shamed retreat or surrender. Mothers famously told their sons to return with your shield or on it, meaning come back victorious or dead, but never as a coward who abandoned his shield to flee faster. This cultural conditioning created soldiers who would fight to the death rather than retreat, giving them a psychological edge over enemies who fought to live rather than to win. The Spartan system also created exceptional unit cohesion. Soldiers had trained together since childhood, forming bonds stronger than family. They fought alongside men they had grown up with, men whose approval they valued more than life itself. This created units that would never abandon each other, that would hold formation even when facing certain death. Combined with their superior training, physical conditioning, and mental toughness, this made the Spartans the peak performers of Greek warfare. Warriors whose reputation alone could sometimes win battles before they began. The Persian Immortals, elite guard of an empire. Now we turn eastward to examine one of the ancient world's most elite military units, the Achaemenid Persian Immortals. This was the elite infantry of the Achaemenid Empire, famously described by the Greek historian Herodotus as a standing force of exactly 10,000 men. They served as the Persian king's personal army and elite guard, representing the finest warriors the vast Persian Empire could produce. The name Immortals came from their unique organizational structure. Whenever a soldier died, was wounded, or became too sick to serve, he was immediately replaced, maintaining the unit at exactly 10,000 men and giving the appearance of an undying force. The Persian Empire, at its height, stretched from Egypt to India, encompassing dozens of different peoples and cultures. From this vast territory, the Persians could select the very best warriors to serve in the Immortals. This wasn't a citizen militia or a conscript army. These were professional soldiers chosen for their skill, loyalty, and physical prowess. They represented the military elite of the world's largest empire, and their reputation reflected that status. The Immortals served multiple roles within the Persian military system. They were the king's bodyguard, protecting the ruler and his family. They were shock troops, deployed at critical moments in battle to break enemy lines. They were garrison troops, holding key fortresses and cities, and they were a symbol of Persian power, their distinctive appearance and reputation serving as a reminder of the empire's might. Understanding how the Persians created and maintained this elite force reveals sophisticated approaches to military excellence that influenced warfare for centuries. Persian Immortals, selection and training. Becoming an immortal was a tremendous honor that required exceptional ability and unwavering loyalty. The Persians drew their elite soldiers from across their empire, but particularly from Persian and Median nobility and from warrior peoples known for their martial prowess. Selection emphasized not just fighting ability, but also loyalty to the king and the Persian state. The Immortals were the king's personal force, and their reliability was as important as their combat effectiveness. Training for the Immortals began in youth for those from military families. Persian noble boys learned the three essential skills: riding, shooting the bow, and speaking the truth. This education created warriors who were skilled horsemen and archers while also instilling the moral character expected of elite soldiers. Physical training emphasized endurance and versatility. Immortals needed to fight effectively as heavy infantry, but also to march long distances and operate in diverse terrain from desert to mountain. Weapons training was comprehensive and sophisticated. Immortals were equipped with a variety of weapons and trained to use all of them effectively. Their primary weapon was the spear, used in formation fighting. They also carried short swords for close combat, bows for ranged attacks, and sometimes axes or maces. This versatility made them adaptable to different tactical situations. Unlike Greek hoplites who specialized in phalanx warfare, or Spartan warriors who focused on a single fighting style, Immortals trained to be effective in multiple combat roles. Unit cohesion was built through the decimal organization system. The Immortals were organized into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, with clear chains of command. Soldiers trained with with their units, building the coordination needed for complex battlefield maneuvers. The Persian military also emphasized combined arms tactics, with immortals training alongside cavalry, archers, and other specialized units. This created soldiers who understood their role within the larger army and could coordinate effectively with other forces. The result was an elite unit that combined individual skill, unit cohesion, and tactical flexibility. Physical conditioning of the immortals. The physical conditioning of the Persian immortals reflected the diverse demands of serving in a vast empire with varied terrain and enemies. Unlike the Spartans, who focused primarily on infantry combat, or the Romans, who emphasized marching endurance, the immortals needed to be versatile athletes capable of performing multiple military roles. Their training created warriors who were strong, fast, and capable of sustained effort in harsh conditions. Endurance training was fundamental as Persian armies often campaigned across vast distances. Immortals practiced long distance marching while carrying their equipment, building the stamina needed for the empire's far flung military operations. They also trained in running, both for battlefield mobility and for the messenger duties that elite soldiers sometimes performed. The Persian Empire's famous road system allowed rapid movement of troops, but soldiers still needed the endurance to cover long distances quickly. Strength training came through weapons practice and combat drills. The spear, sword, and bow all required different types of strength, and immortals trained extensively with each weapon. Drawing a powerful war bow repeatedly built upper body and core strength. Spear fighting in formation required leg strength and endurance to maintain stance for extended periods. Wrestling and hand-to-hand combat training built overall strength and fighting ability. The Persians also emphasized horseback riding, and while the immortals primarily fought as infantry, many were skilled riders who could perform mounted duties when needed. Agility and coordination were developed through combat drills and competitive games. Persian culture valued physical contests, and soldiers competed in running, wrestling, and martial displays. These competitions built the speed and coordination needed for combat while fostering the competitive spirit that drove soldiers to excel. The immortals also practiced formation movements and tactical maneuvers, developing the coordination needed to fight effectively as a unit. This comprehensive approach to physical conditioning created warriors who were capable athletes, ready for the varied demands of military service in the world's largest empire. The Persian military diet. The Persian immortals enjoyed a diet that reflected both the wealth of their empire and the practical needs of military service. Unlike the austere Spartans, Persian soldiers ate well, with the empire's vast resources ensuring that elite troops received abundant, nutritious food. The Persian approach recognized that well-fed soldiers performed better and remained healthier during long campaigns. The immortals' diet was designed to provide the energy and nutrition needed for their demanding duties while also serving as a symbol of the king's generosity and the empire's prosperity. The foundation of the Persian military diet was bread, made from wheat or barley, depending on availability and region. Soldiers received generous rations of grain, which provided the carbohydrates needed for energy during marches and battles. The Persians were skilled bakers, and their bread was often flavored with herbs and seeds, making it more palatable than the simple breads of other armies. This attention to food quality reflected Persian culture's appreciation for good food and the belief that soldiers deserved to eat well. Meat was a regular part of the immortals' diet, unlike many ancient armies where meat was a rare luxury. Persian soldiers ate lamb, goat, and beef, along with poultry and game when available. The empire's pastoral economy provided abundant livestock, and the military supply system ensured that elite troops received regular meat rations. This protein was essential for maintaining muscle mass and strength during the physical demands of military service. Soldiers also consumed dairy products, including cheese and yogurt, which provided additional protein and calcium. Fruits and vegetables supplemented the diet, with the variety depending on season and location. The Persian Empire encompassed diverse agricultural regions, from the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia to the orchards of Persia proper. Soldiers ate dates, figs, pomegranates, and other fruits, along with vegetables like onions, garlic, and legumes. These provided essential vitamins and minerals that kept the army healthy. Wine and beer were standard beverages, providing calories and making water safer to drink. The Persian military diet was designed not just for survival, but for optimal performance, reflecting the empire's wealth and its commitment to maintaining elite military forces. What made the immortals peak performers? The Persian immortals achieved peak performance through a combination of factors that reflected the sophistication of the Achaemenid Empire's military system. First and foremost was their status as a professional standing army. Unlike the citizen soldiers of Greek city-states who farmed most of the year and fought occasionally, the immortals were full-time warriors. This allowed them to maintain constant readiness and high skill levels. They trained regularly, maintained their equipment, and were always prepared for deployment. This professional status made them more reliable and effective than part-time soldiers. The immortals' versatility gave them a significant advantage. They were trained to fight as heavy infantry in formation, but could also operate as skirmishers, use bows effectively, and perform various military roles. This adaptability made them valuable in diverse tactical situations. When facing Greek hoplites, they could engage in close combat. When fighting nomadic horsemen, they could use their bows. This versatility, combined with their training in combined arms tactics, made them effective against a wide range of enemies. The psychological impact of the immortals was substantial. Their name alone, suggesting an undying force that could never be depleted, intimidated enemies. Their distinctive appearance, with ornate armor and uniforms that marked them as elite troops, made them instantly recognizable on the battlefield. Enemies knew that facing the immortals meant confronting the Persian Empire's best warriors, and this reputation often affected enemy morale before battle even began. The immortals also benefited from excellent equipment, with the Empire's resources ensuring they had the best weapons and armor available. Perhaps most importantly, the immortals represented the organizational sophistication of the Persian Empire. Their decimal organization system, clear command structure, and integration into the larger military machine reflected advanced military thinking. They weren't just individual warriors, but part of a sophisticated military system that included logistics, intelligence, and strategic planning. This organizational excellence, combined with their training, equipment, and professional status, made the Persian immortals true peak performers who helped build and maintain the ancient world's largest empire. The Macedonian army, innovation and conquest. Our next military force revolutionized ancient warfare through tactical innovation and brilliant leadership. Under leaders like Alexander the Great, the Macedonian army became a dominant force in the ancient world. Its success was driven by a combination of the formidable Macedonian phalanx and Alexander's tactical genius, which led him to an undefeated record in battle. The Macedonians took the Greek phalanx formation and improved it, creating a military system that conquered the Persian Empire and reached the borders of India. The Macedonian military revolution began under King Philip II, Alexander's father, who transformed Macedonia from a backward kingdom into a military powerhouse. Philip recognized that Macedonia's survival depended on military excellence, and he created a professional army with innovative tactics and equipment. When Alexander inherited this army, he used it to achieve conquests that still amaze historians. In just 13 years, Alexander conquered the largest empire the world had yet seen, defeating every army he faced and never losing a battle. What made the Macedonian army so effective? It wasn't just Alexander's genius, though. His tactical brilliance was certainly crucial. The Macedonians created a military system that combined different types of troops and coordinated tactics, used innovative weapons and formations, and maintained discipline and training that made them superior to their enemies. They also benefited from excellent leadership at all levels, from Alexander himself down to unit commanders who understood their roles and executed complex battle plans. Let's examine how the Macedonians trained, conditioned, and fed their soldiers to create this formidable fighting force. Macedonian training and tactics. Macedonian military training focused on creating soldiers who could fight effectively in the phalanx formation while also being versatile enough to adapt to different tactical situations. The Macedonian phalanx was different from the traditional Greek version. It used longer spears called sarissas, which could be up to 18 feet long. This required specialized training and exceptional coordination, as soldiers had to maneuver these unwieldy weapons while maintaining tight formation. Training began with physical conditioning to build the strength and endurance needed for phalanx warfare. Holding a sarissa required significant upper body and core strength, especially during long battles. Soldiers practiced with their weapons constantly, learning to handle the long spears in formation. The front ranks held their sarissas horizontally, creating a bristling wall of spear points that enemies couldn't penetrate. Rear ranks angled their spears upward, providing protection against arrows and creating a forest of spear points that was nearly impenetrable. Formation drill was crucial to Macedonian effectiveness. The phalanx required soldiers to stand shoulder to shoulder in ranks 16 men deep, moving as a single unit. This demanded constant practice and discipline. Soldiers drilled in, advancing, retreating, wheeling, and maintaining formation over rough terrain. They practiced responding to commands instantly, as hesitation or confusion could break the formation and lead to disaster. The Macedonians also trained in combined arms tactics, learning to coordinate with cavalry, light infantry, and other specialized units. Unlike earlier Greek armies that relied primarily on the phalanx, the Macedonians created a more flexible military system. The phalanx formed the army's center, providing a solid anchor, but Alexander used cavalry, light infantry, and specialized troops to exploit enemy weaknesses. Soldiers trained to understand their role within this larger tactical system. The companion cavalry, Alexander's elite mounted force, trained extensively in shock tactics and coordinated charges. Light infantry practiced skirmishing and harassment. This comprehensive training created an army that could adapt to any enemy in any battlefield, making the Macedonians nearly unbeatable in their era. Macedonian physical conditioning. The physical demands of Macedonian warfare were intense, and soldiers underwent rigorous conditioning to meet these challenges. The Macedonian approach to fitness emphasized functional strength and endurance, the specific physical capabilities needed for their style of warfare. Unlike the Spartans, who built toughness through hardship, or the Romans, who emphasized marching endurance, the Macedonians focused on the strength and stamina needed to fight effectively with their distinctive weapons and tactics. Upper body and core strength were essential for wielding the sarissa. These long spears were heavy and awkward, requiring significant strength to hold steady, especially during long battles. Soldiers built this strength through constant weapons practice and through exercises designed to develop the specific muscles used in phalanx warfare. They also practiced with weighted training spears, building strength that made the actual weapons feel lighter in battle. This approach, training with heavier equipment than you'll use in combat, was a principle the Macedonians shared with the Romans. Endurance training prepared soldiers for the demands of Alexander's campaigns. The Macedonian army marched thousands of miles during Alexander's conquests from Greece to Egypt to India and back. Soldiers needed the stamina to march long distances while carrying their equipment, then fight effectively upon arrival. They practiced long distance marching, building cardiovascular endurance and mental toughness. Alexander was famous for pushing his army hard, covering impressive distances quickly, and his soldiers needed the fitness to maintain this pace. The companion cavalry, Alexander's elite mounted force, required different conditioning. These soldiers needed the strength and balance to fight effectively from horseback, the endurance to ride for hours, and the coordination to control their mounts while wielding weapons. They practiced mounted combat constantly, building the specific fitness needed for cavalry warfare. The Macedonians also emphasized swimming and other general athletic activities, creating well-rounded soldiers who were capable athletes as well as skilled warriors. This comprehensive approach to physical conditioning created an army that could march farther, fight longer, and perform better than their enemies. The Macedonian military diet. The Macedonian army's diet reflected both the practical challenges of campaigning across vast distances and the resources available from conquered territories. Unlike armies operating near home, Alexander's forces campaigned thousands of miles from Macedonia, requiring a flexible approach to nutrition that could adapt to different regions and circumstances. The Macedonian supply system was sophisticated for its time, but soldiers also needed to be able to supplement their rations through foraging and local procurement. The basic ration for Macedonian soldiers centered on grain, primarily wheat or barley, depending on availability. Soldiers received daily grain rations that they would grind and bake into bread or mix into porridge. This provided the carbohydrates needed for energy during marches and battles. The amount of grain provided was calculated to give soldiers adequate calories for their demanding lifestyle, typically around 3 pounds per day, similar to Roman rations. Soldiers carried several days' worth of grain with them, with supply trains bringing additional provisions. Protein came from various sources depending on location and circumstances. When possible, soldiers received rations of salted meat or fish, which could be preserved for extended periods. During campaigns in fertile regions, the army could requisition livestock from local populations, providing fresh meat. Soldiers also hunted and fished to supplement their rations. Cheese was another important protein source as it could be preserved and transported relatively easily. The Macedonians understood that adequate protein was essential for maintaining strength during the physical demands of campaign life. Wine was the standard beverage, usually diluted with water, as was common in Greek culture. This provided calories and made questionable water sources safer to drink. Soldiers also consumed olive oil when available, which provided healthy fats and additional calories. Fruits and vegetables were eaten when available, either from rations or through foraging. As Alexander's army moved through different regions, soldiers adapted to local foods, eating dates in the Middle East, rice in Persia, and exotic fruits in India. This dietary flexibility was necessary for an army campaigning so far from home, and it kept soldiers adequately nourished through years of continuous campaigning. What made Macedonians peak performers? The Macedonian army achieved peak performance through a unique combination of tactical innovation, brilliant leadership, and systematic excellence in training and organization. At the heart of their success was the revolutionary phalanx formation with its long sarissas. This tactical innovation gave them a significant advantage over traditional Greek hoplites and other infantry forces. The sarissa's length meant Macedonian soldiers could strike enemies before those enemies could reach them, creating a nearly impenetrable wall of spear points that was devastating in pitched battles. Alexander's leadership was perhaps the most crucial factor in Macedonian success. He was a tactical genius who could read battles as they developed and adapt his plans accordingly. He led from the front, personally commanding the companion cavalry in charges that often decided battles. His soldiers would follow him anywhere because they trusted his judgment and were inspired by his courage. Alexander also understood logistics and strategy, maintaining supply lines across vast distances and choosing when and where to fight. His undefeated record in battle, winning every engagement from small skirmishes to massive set-piece battles, demonstrated his exceptional military ability. The Macedonian military system excelled at combined arms warfare. Unlike armies that relied primarily on one type of troop, the Macedonians coordinated different forces effectively. The phalanx held the center, providing a solid anchor. The companion cavalry struck at critical moments, breaking enemy formations. Light infantry harassed enemies and protected the phalanx flanks. Siege engineers reduced fortifications. This integration of different military capabilities made the Macedonian army adaptable and effective against diverse enemies, from Greek hoplites to Persian cavalry to Indian war elephants. Finally, the Macedonians benefited from excellent training, discipline, and unit cohesion. Philip II had created a professional army that trained constantly and maintained high standards. Soldiers understood their roles and executed complex tactical maneuvers effectively. The Army's organization, with clear command structures and well-defined units, ensured that orders were communicated and executed efficiently. This systematic excellence, combined with tactical innovation and brilliant leadership, made the Macedonian army the peak performers of their era, conquering an empire that stretched from Greece to India and changing the course of history. The Mongol horde, masters of mobile warfare. Our final military force takes us forward in time to examine warriors who revolutionized warfare through mobility and innovation. While primarily known for their historical peak around the 13th century after the classical ancient period, the Mongols' legacy of military prowess makes them essential to any discussion of history's greatest warrior armies. They were masters of horseback warfare who built the largest contiguous empire in history under Genghis Khan, conquering territory from Korea to Hungary and from Siberia to Southeast Asia. The Mongols achieved something unprecedented. They conquered more territory in 25 years than the Romans did in 400. They defeated every army they faced, from Chinese infantry to European knights to Middle Eastern cavalry. They did this not through superior numbers. Mongol armies were often outnumbered, but through superior tactics, mobility, and organization. The Mongols transformed warfare, introducing innovations that influenced military thinking for centuries. Their success came from a unique combination of cultural factors, training methods, and tactical innovations that made them the ultimate peak performers in mobile warfare. What made the Mongols so effective? They were born to the saddle, learning to ride before they could walk. Their nomadic lifestyle created warriors who were comfortable with hardship, capable of surviving on minimal resources, and skilled at living off the land. Their society was organized around warfare, with every able bodied man serving as a soldier when needed. And they developed tactics that exploited their strengths, mobility, archery, and coordination, while avoiding their weaknesses. Let's examine how the Mongols trained, conditioned, and sustained their warriors to create history's most successful conquerors. Mongol training born in the saddle. Mongol military training began in early childhood and was integrated into every aspect of nomadic life. Unlike other armies that had to teach men to be soldiers, Mongol culture created warriors naturally through daily activities. Boys learned to ride almost as soon as they could walk, spending hours each day on horseback, herding animals across the vast steppes. This created horsemen with extraordinary skill and endurance, capable of riding for days with minimal rest. By the time a Mongol boy reached fighting age, he had already spent thousands of hours in the saddle. Archery training was similarly integrated into daily life. Mongol boys learned to shoot from horseback while hunting, developing the skill to hit moving targets while riding at full gallop. This was incredibly difficult. It required strength to draw the powerful composite bow, coordination to aim while moving, and timing to release the arrow at the right moment. Mongols practiced constantly hunting the game for food while simultaneously honing the skills they would use in war. By adulthood, Mongol warriors could shoot accurately in any direction while riding at speed, making them devastating mounted archers. Mongol military organization emphasized small unit tactics and coordination. Warriors were organized into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000 with clear chains of command. These units trained together, learning to execute complex maneuvers through signals and commands. Mongol tactics relied on coordination between units, feigned retreats to draw enemies into ambushes, envelopments to surround enemy forces, and concentrated attacks at weak points. This required extensive practice and discipline, as individual warriors had to subordinate their actions to the unit's needs. The Mongols also practiced what we might call realistic training. They conducted large-scale hunts called nerds that were essentially military exercises. Thousands of warriors would surround a vast area, gradually closing the circle while driving game toward the center. This taught coordination, communication, and the tactics they would use in war. Warriors who failed to maintain their position or broke formation were severely punished, instilling the discipline needed for military operations. These hunts provided meat for the tribe while simultaneously training the army, making them an efficient use of time and resources. Mongol physical conditioning and endurance. The physical conditioning of Mongol warriors was extraordinary, built through a lifetime of nomadic life on the harsh steppes. Unlike armies that had structured training programs, Mongols developed their fitness through daily activities that were far more demanding than any exercise regimen. The result was warriors with exceptional endurance, strength, and resilience who could perform feats that amazed and terrified their enemies. Mongol armies could ride 100 miles in a day, fight a battle, and ride another 100 miles the next day, a pace that would destroy most armies. Horseback riding from childhood created specific physical adaptations. Mongol warriors developed powerful legs and core muscles from hours in the saddle. They had exceptional balance and coordination, able to control their horses with subtle movements while leaving their hands free for weapons. Their cardiovascular endurance was remarkable. They could ride for days with minimal rest, sleeping in the saddle when necessary. This endurance came not from training programs, but from a lifestyle that required constant movement and physical activity. The harsh steppe environment built mental and physical toughness. Mongols endured extreme temperatures, from scorching summer heat to brutal winter cold. They were comfortable with hunger, thirst, and exhaustion, conditions that would incapacitate soldiers from more comfortable societies. This hardiness was crucial to their military success. Mongol armies could campaign in conditions that would force other armies to halt. They could survive on minimal rations, living off their horses' milk and blood when necessary. This resilience gave them strategic advantages, allowing them to operate in terrain and weather that their enemies considered impossible. Wrestling was the primary form of strength training in Mongol culture. Mongol wrestling, called buk, was a national sport that built functional strength and combat skills. Warriors competed regularly, developing the strength and technique needed for hand to hand combat. While Mongols preferred to fight from horseback with bows, they were also capable close combat fighters when necessary. The combination of riding endurance, archery skill, wrestling strength, and environmental toughness created warriors who were supremely fit for their style of warfare. Mobile, resilient, and capable of sustained operations that would exhaust other armies. The Mongol diet sustaining mobile warfare. The Mongol diet was uniquely adapted to support their mobile lifestyle and military operations. Unlike settled agricultural societies that relied on grain and vegetables, the Mongols were primarily pastoralists, whose diet centered on animal products. This diet was perfect for their needs. It was portable, required no cooking facilities, and could sustain warriors during long campaigns. The Mongol approach to nutrition demonstrated that there are many paths to peak performance, and their meat heavy diet provided the energy and nutrients needed for their demanding lifestyle. Meat was the foundation of the Mongol diet, primarily from sheep, goats, horses, and cattle. Mongols ate meat in various forms, fresh when available, dried into jerky for preservation, or made into sausages. This provided abundant protein and fat, giving warriors the calories needed for long days in the saddle. Unlike agricultural societies where meat was a luxury, Mongols had regular access to animal protein from their herds. They also consumed organ meats, which provided essential vitamins and minerals that might otherwise be lacking in a meat heavy diet. Dairy products were equally important. Mongols consumed milk from their horses, sheep, goats, and cattle, either fresh or fermented, into kumis, a mildly alcoholic beverage. Kumis was particularly important. It provided hydration, calories, and probiotics that aided digestion. They also made cheese and yogurt, which could be preserved and carried on campaigns. And these dairy products provided calcium, vitamins, and additional protein. The combination of meat and dairy gave Mongols a complete nutritional profile without requiring agriculture or elaborate food preparation. On campaign, Mongol warriors could survive on remarkably little. They carried dried meat and cheese, which provided concentrated nutrition in portable form. They could also drink their horse's blood, carefully drawing small amounts that wouldn't harm the animal but would provide emergency nutrition. They drank mare's milk and made a portable food called borts, dried meat pounded into powder that could be mixed with water to create a nutritious soup. This dietary flexibility meant Mongol armies didn't need elaborate supply trains. They could live off their herds and the land, giving them strategic mobility that armies dependent on grain supplies couldn't match. This diet, combined with their physical conditioning, created warriors who could sustain incredible levels of activity during extended campaigns. What made Mongols peak performers? The Mongols achieved peak performance through a unique combination of cultural factors, tactical innovations, and organizational excellence that made them perhaps the most successful conquerors in history. Their greatest advantage was mobility. Mongol armies could move faster and farther than any other force in the ancient or medieval world. Each warrior had multiple horses, allowing them to switch mounts and maintain a rapid pace. They could cover distances in days that would take other armies weeks. appearing suddenly where enemies didn't expect them and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. This strategic mobility gave them initiative in every campaign. Their tactical system was revolutionary. Mongols fought primarily as mounted archers using hit and run tactics that frustrated enemies accustomed to pitched battles. They would harass enemy forces with arrows, retreat when charged, and gradually wear down their opponents. When enemies were exhausted and disorganized, the Mongols would attack decisively. They also mastered feigned retreats, pretending to flee to draw enemies into ambushes. These tactics exploited their strengths, mobility, and archery, while avoiding close combat where heavier cavalry or infantry might have advantages. Mongol organization and discipline were exceptional. Despite their reputation as barbarian hordes, Mongol armies were highly organized with clear command structures and sophisticated tactics. They used scouts extensively, gathering intelligence about enemy forces and terrain. They coordinated attacks across vast distances, with multiple armies converging on targets simultaneously. They adapted to different enemies, learning siege warfare to conquer Chinese cities and developing heavy cavalry to fight European knights. This organizational sophistication, combined with strict discipline and meritocratic leadership, made them far more effective than their numbers suggested. Perhaps most importantly, the Mongols benefited from a culture entirely adapted to warfare. Every aspect of nomadic life, riding, hunting, herding, built the skills needed for military success. Their harsh environment created tough, resilient warriors comfortable with hardship. Their diet supported sustained physical performance without requiring elaborate logistics. Their social structure emphasized loyalty and discipline, and their tactical innovations exploited their cultural strengths while minimizing weaknesses. The result was an army that conquered the largest empire in history, demonstrating that peak performance comes from the complete integration of culture, training, nutrition, and tactics into a coherent system optimized for success. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. I hope these stories of ancient warriors have inspired you and provided practical wisdom for your own pursuit of excellence. Remember, peak performance isn't about being superhuman. It's about being systematic, consistent, and committed to continuous improvement. The ancient warriors knew this, and now you do too. Until next time, keep pushing toward your peak. In the next episode, we compare all of these great warriors by their training philosophies, physical conditioning, diets, and a mental game, psychology of peak performance, and show how we can implement these strategies into our own lives.